we are back on the second episode of TOJOY Podcast, and unusual situation require unusual solutions. So our solution for today is the virtual podcast, and I invited Richard Burton, CEO of TOJOY EMEA West, today for our second podcast. Hello, Richard. The crisis deepened, and we read a lot about companies, how they responded to the crisis impact on their businesses, also the measurements they have taken. And as we know from TOJOY, with its large business acceleration platform and the membership of 700,000 entrepreneurs, we would like to know and understand how TOJOY responded to the crisis and at the same time maintain its business operations.
Thank you very much. Hello, and I'm delighted to be here. We needed a fast response, and we needed the leadership to take fast decisions. Think out of the box, find perhaps new opportunities, because our traditional business model wasn't going to be fully adapted to the current situation. And above all, we needed to ensure that our staff, that we cared about them, and that we could accompany them through the crisis. So how do we do this? TOJOY, as Trang said, is a very large platform of business acceleration, and we run over 300 offline symposia per year. But obviously, in the crisis, we could no longer carry on with the traditional offline activities. So we needed to move these very quickly online. And we were able to do this because TOJOY had the foresight to invest significantly in tools, and notably in something we call the TOJOY Cloud beforehand. And a very good example of this is that we had planned to run 7 very big major symposia between January and over the first few months of the year. And we were able to move all of these online. And collectively, we had over 110,000 participants in these symposia, and 20,000 or 21,000 participants indicated some kind of interest in the projects we were presenting.
That's very great to hear, to switch from traditional model to online business. And with your membership of entrepreneurs and investors, do you have any information that you can share with us, like how they reacted to the crisis?
The network, a lot of the businesses found different ways and innovative ways to come through the crisis. But just 4 examples. For example, in the healthcare sector, Auric, a major manufacturer of medical equipment, and particularly mobile equipment, was very quickly at the forefront of the crisis. In retail, B&G, a specialized retailer in mother and infant goods, or a mix of offline and online. Of course, their stores offline were all shut, so they needed to innovate and put much more emphasis onto the online part of their business, and very successfully, to the degree that they saw a 200% increase in business online through this process. In education, a company, WHX Education, again, more of a traditional offline business, very quickly put much of its offline resources, its teaching resources, online. And this was very successful because in several ways, but in a major way, which was in doing so, they quickly saw that they were getting more information and better understanding the learning needs of their students. And now they've as well seen a significant increase, a 38% increase in registrations, if I like, of people joining their online courses. And finally, from the food and beverage sector, Tea Break Asia, again, more offline, needed to move online. The people were still demanding their tea, and they needed to find innovative ways to ensure that they not only could they sell them online, but they could deliver them to their customers. At the same time, reflect more about their business, about the products they were selling, and in some way innovate in new products, coming up with, for example, a DIY bubble tea kit for your home. So we've seen in all of this innovation, reactivity, new business models, and new products coming through this crisis.
It is very impressive to see and hear that your business is still running up. I want to get to one point that you mentioned earlier about caring about your 6,000 global employees. What kind of actions did TOJOY take?
Businesses only run if they have staff who are engaged and who feel that they're cared for by the organization they're working for. This comes from the leadership at the top, and I think that TOJOY acted very well, because even as soon as the crisis started to hit, TOJOY's top management took the decision to not make anybody, not lay off anybody, and not to reduce any salaries, to make sure that TOJOY and its staff would come through the crisis safely, let's put it that way. Another thing is that TOJOY also took the decision very early on to have everybody, so this is 5,000-6,000 people, working remotely. This was very, very impressive, because from one day to the next, everybody was working from home. But it wasn't just about the leadership and about management and about teleworking. It was also about mutual support across the organization. The overseas units, the early on in the crisis, when it was fully in full flight, let's say in China, were able to source and send over some medical supplies to colleagues in China, and now that the crisis is no longer in China but elsewhere in the world, our colleagues in China, our teams in China, are trying to do the same for the overseas teams. And now finally China is coming through the crisis. TOJOY is once again trying to show how much it cares, in a way, and is recruiting significant numbers of people, about 8,000 people in fact, in China as we speak, over the next few months. That's more or less doubling its team, because it can, and because it feels confident about the future of TOJOY and the future of China.
These are fantastic news for the Chinese citizens, and also very great initiative from TOJOY. So before we end this episode, I have one last question for you, Richard. How do you see TOJOY's business development, or also in general the economic and also business development after the post-crisis?
Obviously, there's going to be a very, very big economic impact behind this, accompanying this, if you like, and we have to recognize that that's going to be, and it's going to take some time to come through, and some businesses will be more affected than others. But nonetheless, we will get through it. I'm absolutely positive about that. And we will learn some things from this crisis. We've learned much about, some of the things which we've been doing through it will continue after it. Some of the areas, and much of this is affected by digital transformation, if you like. We've seen how sectors which were perhaps just beginning in the early stages of their digital transformation will now, that process will now accelerate. And I can talk about education, medical services, particularly you can think about online consultations, financial services, where there's been, fintech, which has over the last years developed, but they will now accelerate. And business services such as those that support teleworking and remote working, team working, will all be an acceleration of innovation and development. But we're in a crisis. We will come through it, and I'm very positive about the future for TOJOY.
Thank you, Richard. And I also agree, this topic about the post-crisis could be a very interesting topic for the next future podcast. I hope I speak for everyone that we really wish this crisis to end very soon. But of course, we did a lot of learnings also about this crisis. Thank you again, Richard, for being here during the confinement and this difficult time. And also thank you for the audience for listening and watching TOJOY Podcast. Bye.
Thank you.